Hello there. How is everybody? I hope you're doing well. And I don't know if the light just went on. It's always been on. I don't know what's with the camera. But anyway, today I'd like to talk about the idea of a nice, clean, tidy study space. I'm not sure where this came from. Yeah, I was reading something. Well, I guess because I was reading something and it made the comment about a cleaner study space. And I said, no, that's not necessary. So I've got some things that I want to talk about that come from science, actually. But let me talk about that from, in a sense, a practical standpoint first. Let's think about studying. And most people are going to say you need to have a nice, stable, clean study space where it's got good lighting and, a good chair, good sturdy desk and things like that. And it's like, no, not really. Think about it. Let's just go really simple now. Go to the ABCs. I don't know if you remember learning the ABCs, you may or you may not, but do you really think that you sat at a desk with good lighting and a sturdy chair and sat there and learned the alphabet? Most likely, you were running around the house singing the song. If you were in pre-K, you might have been standing in a classroom with a group of other students watching some videos and singing the song along with the videos while people were doing cartoon figures or some such thing on the board. If you know any children or if you have children, ask how they learn the ABCs. And the odds are is they're running around doing something. But you know your ABCs. I don't know that there's any documented evidence about this, but something tells me that even people with Alzheimer's and dementia, unless they have really massive brain damage of some sort, but one of the last things they're going to forget is the ABCs because they've had it for so long, but they learned it in such a way so early before anything like a clean desk and a sturdy table and all that good stuff was even advisable. Okay, does that make sense? Many of the things that you learn that you, in a sense, take for granted now, you learned way before anybody tried to get you to sit down at a desk and study. The only time I sat at a desk to do anything with the ABCs is when I was in school and I had to learn to write the ABCs. But they needed the desk so I could write on something. That's probably the same thing with you. Okay, got it? Let's try another example. And for why, I don't know why it came to mind, but let's go with Abraham Lincoln. I don't know what you remember about him from school, but do you really think that as he grew up, that he had this nice clean desk? He definitely didn't have electric light at that point, probably candlelight. And I seriously doubt that he had a good sturdy desk and a good sturdy chair and anything else that people today tried to sell for a good study area. But he managed to do fairly well for himself. Okay. We can go back beyond that. You pick anybody. Washington, President Washington, you go back to the Puritans, the people who came over in this country, even before that, before America was discovered. Do you think Christopher Columbus and the people at his era grew up and learned with the idea of having, a good, clean study area? Probably not. In that particular day and age, they probably grew up with a bunch of other kids and they found whatever study area they could find. And yet people managed to do quite well. I mean, does this make sense? I mean, do you really think that this concept of having a good sturdy chair, you're sitting there, you're sitting up straight, all of that good stuff, is something that's been going on for decades and millennia? Probably not. So from a practical standpoint, I think it makes sense that it's not sensible. Now, I also found something, and I'm going through a book called How We Learn. And let's see, where is this? Benedict Carey. But one of the things I've got in here that I wanted to read is the idea that having a dedicated space is really, to some degree, contraindicated. And I've known this for a bit, but the book brought it back to me. When you learn something and you really know it, you've learned it in multiple spaces. Because one of the problems with a dedicated study space is that's where you learn it and that's where you remember it. How many times have you learned something at a dedicated, say I'm sitting in here looking at the computer now and I've studied it, I got it. I walk away, I go to another space, somebody asks me that same information and I have no clue. Because I'm learning it here with a certain set of cues. And so when I'm associating that particular material, I'm associating with the cues of what I'm seeing here now. So as I've said before, if you're studying for test, however, if you're studying for a test, then you said, study with something that's like the room in which you're going to take the test. So if you're going to take a test in a room with a clock, study someplace where you can see a clock so that when you're looking at the clock, things will come back to you because that's the way you studied it. Does that make sense? So pretend if I've got a clock right up there and I'm studying it and I look at the clock and I'm going over this stuff in my head, then I go into the place and take the test and I can't get to it. So I look up the clock, there it is. And as I'm looking at the clock, the cues are going to come back to me. So it's helpful when you take the test. But think about it from the flip side. Remove those cues, you can't remember it. Does that make sense? So that when you have different areas that you study, whether it's studying at the desk here or looking at the computer or going outside and, having a cup of tea or a glass of water or whatever it is that you're going to do under a tree on a summer day, go down to the beach, something along that line, you get in different areas, you study in different areas, and you're going to remember those things from different areas. How many of you have ever gone through a series of index cards and you put the flashcards on and you go on, and after a while you get to the point that you know not only what the answer for that flashcard is, but you know the answers for the next 5 because they're coming in sequence? Shuffle those cards and you're lost because you've got the cues from one card leads into the other card. You follow me on this? So that when you have different study areas, different places, and you're associating your learning material with different places, you're more likely to be able to bring it back because you've got multiple cues. Okay? So what we've got here, and that's where this comment's coming from. I wanted to explain that before I read it. Studies find that the brain picks up patterns more efficiently when presented with a mixed bag of related tasks than when it's force-fed just one. In other words, when you study in different places, instead of one place, you're more likely to pick it up because you've got it from different cues. And this goes for no matter the age of the student or the subject area, whether Italian phrases or chemical bonds. So in other words, that when you're getting a variety of cues, you're learning better. And this goes for whether you're in school or anything else. If you've got to do something that you're learning for work or you're practicing a speech or some such thing like that, you may want to do it in different areas because then it's more likely to stay with you, especially if it's something you want to remember. Now, if you're going to do it for once and you don't intend to ever do it again, except for the fact that you may find out that you may need to do it again at some point in time, but that's a choice you have to make. So in other words, the idea of the clean study area doesn't even necessarily have to be clean study. So if some of you prefer to study at a messy area, you may actually be onto something that works for you because the multiple cues perhaps that you've got on a messy desk might be different on any day. And so that may help you better learn material, perhaps. I don't know. The idea here is I'm going to suggest try it out and see what happens and where you work better and remember things better. And this doesn't matter whether it's, as it says, Italian phrases or chemical bonds. It could be anything that you're learning material for that you have to know for work or whatever. Try it and see what happens. And then let me know and, give me your thoughts on that particular topic, would you? Otherwise, I feel like I'm just talking to, an inanimate object on the computer and staring at the little camera thing over here. So, if somebody can be helped by this, share it and let me know and just give me some comments. And I hope you found this helpful. And next time somebody tells you that you should study at a good study area instead of, and they tell you good study area in one place, I hope you can remember some of this to give them an argument back and see what happens. And if they give you an argument and you can't solve it, say something to me and we'll see what we can come up with. Okay. So I hope that's helpful for you today and we'll chat with you later. And have a good week. Bye.